my goal today isn't necessarily to give you all a BuzzFeed sales pitch. I know you don't come here to sit here and listen to some guy try to sell you ads. My goal today is to give you some perspective on the social web and where BuzzFeed sees advertising and social going in general. Got some fun examples to show you. Just want to give you a peek inside how we think about the social web and why we think people share the content that they do. So we've got some room at the end for questions. Please feel free to reach out to me afterwards if you want to talk about anything, if you have any questions. But just want to go ahead and get started. So a little bit about myself. If I was a John Hughes movie, I would be Ferris Bueller's Day Off. My rock star best friend would be Dave Grohl. If I was a Desperate Housewife, or Real Housewife, I would be whoever the hell that is. And if I was a Toy Story character, I would be Rex. These are all things I learned about myself taking quizzes on BuzzFeed. So just real quick, by a show of hands, how many people in this room have taken a BuzzFeed quiz? Awesome. How many people in this room have not taken a BuzzFeed quiz? Cool. So, of the people, if Aaron mentioned that there are people hiring, if there's anybody in this room hiring, you should hire those people because they're probably productive at their jobs. They probably do work at work, unlike the rest of us. But the rest of you guys who did raise your hands, don't feel like a slacker. I'm not trying to call you out. You are part of what we call the Bored at Work network. You are people, or the Bored in Line network. You're constantly consuming feeds. You're looking for information, and you're just scrolling all day. And that's because social media is now the central point of your media consumption. It started with search, and then it went to portals, and then now it's social. So if you think about it, people now spend most of their time consuming media coming through social channels. The world has never been this connected, and social is a huge disruptor in terms of how people are communicating and where people are learning about the world. Social is not just a place, it's easy to dismiss it as a place where people waste time and where people go to mess around and goof off at work. But the reality is now we're learning about the world through social. We're learning about what's happening. We're connecting with our friends. And it's a really exciting, important time. So for all of you who work in this industry and get to sit in this room, you have a really cool job. And so I'm excited to be here and to be able to talk to you because we view social as probably one of the most important changes that's happened in this century. We think that it's very interesting to see because right now, the way ideas spread is changing. It's so much different than 10 years ago or even a full generation before. There's no longer such thing as a 24-hour news cycle, right? You're not sitting around all day waiting for the 6 o'clock news to tell you what to think. By the time that happens, you've already seen it, you've already learned about it. This generation doesn't have a legacy news source. You don't check one place every day to learn about what's happening. If something happens in the world and it's important to you, you feel like it'll find its way to you. So if you think about if a big event happens, if there's a big important death or something like that, chances are you're going to learn about it on Facebook or Twitter way before you sit around and see it on the evening news. And this is very interesting because it just goes to show the tools of the old world are no longer what drives these big moments in culture or drives what people are talking about or drives conversation. So I'm not here to say TV's dead or newspaper's dead. That's not the point. Is that these formats are still alive and well, and people are still consuming all of this content. It's just completely different now. The devices that you're using to watch video or to read news, and really the delivery system. So you're not subscribing to news channels anymore. Usually you will find that information making its way to you. So what I mean when I say this, it's social is now what's driving the big moments in conversation or culture and the big conversations. So take, for example, our friend Miley, right? This was a huge moment, right? You couldn't avoid this. Everyone was talking about it. It was you couldn't have a conversation or look on Facebook without somebody posting or talking about it. It was, it was this massive thing, right? But I would challenge you to think that this moment of Miley Cyrus, shocking the world and, coming out into her own as this scandalous young woman didn't actually happen on the VMAs. It didn't happen on MTV. Where this happened is on social media the following few days. So sure, it originated on MTV and it originated on the VMAs, but the fury that happened around people talking about this and building it up into a massive moment in culture, it happened on social. And to illustrate that point, 10 million people watched the VMAs, but the following day, 18 million people consumed Miley Cyrus content on BuzzFeed. And BuzzFeed is one site on a huge internet, right? So you think about like things will happen on traditional media that are built up and echoed on social, and that's really what drives like the massive conversations. BuzzFeed is one of the companies that's really responding to the shift in the way people are consuming content. We recognize that you are mobile, social, and video first. We know that that's where you're looking for content. We know that that's where you're finding content that fuels conversation. So our point of view is that consumers are looking for content. You want to engage with content. You want to share it with your friends. And the best brands are acting as publishers, and they're creating content that tells their story, that engages people in a conversation instead of just an advertising campaign. So it takes great content to do that. In order to get that ball rolling, it takes a serious understanding of what makes something go viral or what makes somebody want to talk about it. So you've got to really investigate why someone would share a piece of content, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So you think about it, there's no such thing as like a happy accident. Like people see all these things happen out of nowhere, and like all of a sudden there'll be this big thing that's trending and everybody's blowing up and thinking like, oh, this just came from out of nowhere. But the reality is these like things like this, like the Harlem Shake or this Oreo tweet. The Harlem Shake seems like a weird little internet thing that the internet got behind, but in reality, it was a video that the guys at Maker Studios recognized some pre-viral potential because they were looking at the data and they saw like this thing has the potential to take off. Let's replicate it. Let's do it a couple more times. Let's put promotion behind it. Next thing you know, you give it enough of a push and it's taken off. Oreo, this tweet that like everyone just can't stop talking about like a full year later, it seemed like this amazing moment that they just thought of and were like, let's do this. But Oreo had been creating content for a year, so they learned from their failures before that. So they knew what was going to work and what wasn't. So it wasn't this like fluke thing. They had tested it and they had learned about it. And the way to do that is you have to examine data, and you have to really understand why someone would share your content and how it behaves. So at BuzzFeed, we take a really scientific approach to looking at how something is going to react on the social web. So when we measure traffic to each piece of content individually, and we look at, for like say an advertiser, we look at traffic to the content from like a paid ad, and then we look at where all the earned engagement comes from. And then from that, we examine deeper, looking at like, this post performed really well on Facebook, or this post performed really well on Twitter. And we really want to watch and understand how things are being shared and why they're being shared. To understand why someone would share something is just as important as building the actual content. So when we look at the share statements, when someone takes and shares a piece of content, they usually write something, like they'll write a little clip on top of it. So there's the share statements, and then we look at that and bucket into 3 different distinct buckets that would say why someone would want to share something. So the first thing is identity. So somebody's saying, this post or this piece of content that I found, this speaks to me. Like, this is who I am. I'm going to share this so that you all understand me. Or I would share a piece of content that says, this explains a part of your identity that I don't fully understand. Or I want you to think that I am funny, smart, informed on the news, really good at my job, whatever. Like, you put up a post that said, like, some people will post an article without even reading it just so that you think that they look smarter. Or an emotional gift. So this made me feel X, I want you to feel Y. So this made me feel happy, I want you to feel happy. Or I heard you're feeling sad, here's a post of kittens, playing with yarn to cheer you up. Or just plain information, like here's something that supports a view I already have. If you're someone who stands by an issue, people will post stuff constantly just like, this is important to me. Or I would like you to know that this is important to me. We're constantly building our own brand in social. We're crafting our own personal image based on what we share. We want people to view us in a certain way based on what we share on social. So you have to look at why people would share something when you're creating content for the social web. You also have to think about where it will be shared. So just to think like, I want to create an awesome piece of content and hope that people share it. You have to realize that content performs differently on different platforms. So if you're writing a piece of content specifically for Twitter or specifically for Facebook or Pinterest, you have to recognize the window is different and it behaves a little differently. Twitter is super fast, right? If something is going to take off on Twitter, it's going to take off like crazy, and then like 2 days later, it's gone. No one's ever going to see it again. Facebook has a little bit slower ramp, right? Like it ramps up like a couple days after like the original virality of it, but then you see it kind of drop off in popularity, but then you see like your friends who like aren't as with it. You know, you see somebody post something that's like, you're like, dude, that video was like 2 weeks ago. But it kind of takes a little bit, you know, time for it to trickle down. Pinterest is the exact opposite, where Pinterest never really drops off. But Pinterest isn't necessarily about like being in the moment. You know, Pinterest is about crafty content or things that never really don't have like a time associated to them. So when something goes up on Pinterest, you see a slow climb and then it just kind of plateaus and it stays there. So Pinterest never really dies down because like recipes for cookies like are still going to be important, you know, a week or two from now. So when we think about BuzzFeed, we spend a lot of time focusing on data and trying to understand why someone would share content and why these pieces are going to go viral, and trying to understand like what it takes to get a piece of content to go viral. But there are a few common themes and a few key themes that always work, and that's what I want to share with you today. Just a few ideas for the content creators in the room or the people who work with brands to say like, these are surefire strategies for how you can make a piece of viral content or piece of content that'll work on the social web. So first and foremost, you have to make content that you'd be proud to share. Everything that we put up on the site has to pass what we call the like test, which is really simple. It's if you see something in your newsfeed, would you like it? So if you're posting stuff that's just like a waste of everyone's time, like a lot of beer brands will do this, or a lot of like alcohol brands will be like, thumbs up if you like Friday, and it's like that's like it's just a waste, right? Like it doesn't do anything for your brand. It doesn't change your message. It doesn't offer you anything. People share content because they think their friends are going to like it, right? So if you're putting out a piece of content hoping that other people are going to share it, like you better make sure that when that person shares it, it's not a dud. Like, have you ever posted something to Facebook and like it gets no likes? It sucks, right? You're like, man, like my friends must not have been on Facebook that day. But like you want to put up stuff that people will like and react to. Second trip is there are no bad ideas. Like you have to constantly be testing. When you're creating content for the social web, it's like have some fun with it. Like don't spend, like people try to spend as much time creating simple web content as they do like their big TV production spots. The fact is like if you experiment with it and have some fun, you learn from your failures as much as you learn from your successes. So don't be afraid to take some risk and have some fun creating different pieces of content, but study the results and see why something worked or why it didn't. Don't use tricks. There are a lot of people who are famous for tricks on the social web. Like they write deceptive headlines where you see something and then you click into it and you're like, that's not at all what I clicked on. That's a trick. Or gaming search engines where you ever search for a recipe or something and you end up on like about.com and it doesn't have any actual content there. You're like, this is the trick. So you got to think about it in terms of like people, the social web especially is smart and it self-polices. Like if you're trying to trick people with a gimmick or something, like they're going to smell it a mile away. So don't try like weird little tricks. If your brand stands for something, feel free to talk about it on the social web. We say emotional content resonates really well because it's people that are using it. So I like to say like, don't create content for Facebook, create content for the people on Facebook, the people with actual feelings and emotional reactions to content that makes them feel something. This one's pretty self-explanatory, but you see it a lot. So you don't post things that you're embarrassed to share. We have what we call a very strict no haters policy, which means there's nothing negative you're allowed to post on BuzzFeed because negative isn't social. People don't share negative content. Like I'm sure you've seen where somebody will write like a super scathing review or something like really, people will like super fast to react to something that's bad. I'm so mad about this, and everybody just kind of stays away from it, right? Because it's negative, and negative isn't shareable. This is Boo, and we love Boo because Boo owns the internet. Cute animals, a lot of brands like try to shy away from them. They think like their brand is too serious. Like we are a wholesome Midwestern company, and we don't need to resort to like using animals. The fact is like animals are the biggest thing on the web, and we love animals at BuzzFeed because it's the new leisure section. It's the new place that you go to kind of feel good. Like you're not going to go and read a thing on the New York Times about this $100,000 vacation that you'll never be able to take. But you can relate to a really funny post about 15 dogs running into a screen door, right? Like, you'll share that, you'll love it. And the other thing about animals that's really powerful is that they can convey human emotion almost better than we can, right? So if you see a dog and the dog looks sad, you're like, that dog, why is he sad? You know, or the dog is happy, you're like, that dog's happy, like, I'm happy now. So animals have a great way. When you see a person in an ad that looks kind of sad, you're like, that guy looks like a dork. So, but you see an animal doing that, and you mimic that feeling. Content is huge. So all the left-handers in the audience know what this is. So they would share this, like 15 things that are terrible about being left-handed. Like, you would post that. Like, if I saw a post that was like the 15 things that, you know, the worst things about being awkwardly tall, I would share that, right? And all my tall friends like will take and comment and repost it and stuff like that. So content finds its way to its intended audience through sharing. So another fun thing would be capture the moment. This post was a couple years ago. There was that like fake earthquake in New York where all of a sudden everybody freaked out like there's an earthquake in New York, but it was barely an earthquake. So within like 10 minutes, we had put up this post that was the devastating aftermath of the New York earthquake, and it was like a yogurt cup tipped over, like a clock like slightly ajar, and the thing got like 10 million views within a couple hours because it was right on, it was spot on in the moment. Like you look at the selfie from the Oscars a couple weeks ago. Like you align with what's happening right then and there, but know like when your brand is allowed to step in. But you can also plan to be spontaneous. So this is from, if you don't know who these people are, they're the people who made Brave. 2 years ago, they won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. Bowser had a spot, or is that Bowser? Who was it? Yeah, Bowser. Had a cameo in Wreck-It Ralph. So they knew, you know, Wreck-It Ralph was either going to win or lose the Oscar, so they had a planned response. So they tweeted that instantly, and tons of people retweeted it, and it was like a winning case for them. Humor always works on the social web. People love funny content. If your brand has a funny voice, like, don't hesitate to use it. It's sad to think we're already nostalgic for the 90s, but nostalgia is huge because it plays to our identity. Like when you see a post that says like, you know, 15 signs that you grew up in the 90s, if you grew up in the 90s, that's going to speak to you and you'll share it. Again, if your brand believes in something, if there's something that your brand stands for, people are more and more active in about social issues and causes on the social web than they've ever been. Twitter has, you know, the power to start revolution. So if your brand has beliefs, like don't shy away from them, and don't ignore mobile. If it used to be that mobile would stop content from spreading, right? If you got a link to a video on your phone and you couldn't open it from your phone, like you're never going to go back to that video. Like if you're clicking through, you see something, you click on it, it plays, it doesn't load, like that video's gone. Like the spread of that content stops right there. So you have to be able to make sure that you're building for all platforms and that things will spread. But most importantly, be yourself and be true to the identity of your brand or to yourself. If your brand isn't funny, don't try to be funny. If your brand like is funny and then all of a sudden you're doing like really serious messaging, it doesn't sound right. When something's phony on the social web, like it shines through so easily, and people can sense it and they stay away from it. Like if a brand injects themselves where it doesn't belong, people they feel weird about it, right? So it's like know what your brand's position is and what your identity is. So that's tips for when we say like we're creating content. We think that if good content is shareable, then all ads should be too. We don't think that anymore with all the thousands of devices that we're using and the onslaught of just attacking from advertising that we're all getting as consumers. Like we just don't think it's enough for brands to be next to content anymore. You've trained your eyes not to look in certain places on websites. You know where the content is. You know how to draw the line in between. This is what I want. This is what they're trying to sell me. So we think that you saying, I want to be next to content that speaks to the audience, we just don't think it's enough. We think that social gives you real opportunity to connect with people and have a conversation versus just talking at them. And so we think like people don't hate advertising, right? We love our favorite brands. We advocate for our favorite brands. Like we take to social and we advocate for the people who who understand us and talk to us like people. Advertising used to tell stories. It used to be beautiful. It used to be an art form. We used to take people on a journey through our ads and talk to people. But now too many people, like the way that digital advertising is viewed so often is we use it as, TV is where we drive awareness and where we build our relationships, and on digital is where we'll sell them, and we'll hit them with promotional messaging, we'll talk about price and just scream product promotions at them. But that's not how we use our devices anymore. That's not how we consume media. We're spending more and more time on social and on our devices. So our budgets need to start to recognize that the web is a great place for branding and is a great place for you to tell a story. But way too often, this is what we end up doing, right? We have so many banner ads and so many things that we know that people just don't care about. So we think that social can make advertising, can make it great again, and we think it's time for brands to do something different. Whether you're a person in this room, like if you're an agency person and you buy ads, or you're a media person and you sell ads, like I want you to just, for the next 10 minutes, just humor me and just admit to yourself that these things don't work, right? Like that you as a human who sits and uses a computer ignore 99% of all banner ads that you see. Like, sure, to your point earlier, it's if you see an ad for a pair of shoes that you looked at a few days ago, like maybe that might help. So I'm not trying to say that like death to banners and they don't fit in. There's a certain place in the funnel for them, but we think that there's a real opportunity on the web for you to elevate the conversation and do something different. Because as our friend Albert Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing something over and over again and expecting a different result. We keep selling and buying these same units and these same things. Like maybe we'll layer more data on top of it. We'll add more targeting. We'll do all these different things. But we're buying the same stuff and we're expecting it to be different. So I'm here to tell you that there are options. It's not just BuzzFeed, but we are one of the publishers that believes in different ways of advertising people, because social content is content that consumers actually want. It doesn't matter if it's sponsored content or if it's a branded content. If it's good content, and people will share it. I'm sure all of you have at least seen one of these ads that have completely gone crazy on social. People don't care that this came from an advertiser, that it was a branded message. If it was a good message that spoke to them as a person, they'll watch it, they'll share it. Think about like the Super Bowl or Vogue magazine. If you take out the advertising from those properties, it's not as good of an experience. So it's not that people hate advertising, they just hate bad advertising. So like a good TV ad, good social ads, they tell a story, they involve people emotionally, and they're not heavy-handed. So it's about more than just shouting features. It's about more than just talking to people. It's about creating a cadence in a relationship, in a back and forth relationship. If you tell an interesting enough story, you can get people to tell it for you. So I'll walk you through just a few examples of how BuzzFeed does this. So this is an example for Panera Bread. They're saying, hey, not enough people eat breakfast. How can we help get people to eat breakfast again? So here's 17 reasons to start eating breakfast again. It prevents overeating. Makes you feel like a real adult. You can eat fancy meals in the morning. Possibilities are endless. You can see it's a light touch, but it tells Panera's story in a way that you would take and share it. Gatorade's trying to reach high school athletes, and instead of just saying like, buy Gatorade, it'll help you work out better, it's got low calories, there's no salt, there's no sugar, all these like product-based things, they're trying to say like, hey, we can help you win from within, which is their entire brand platform, and here are 10 training tips that'll put you ahead of the competition. If you were a high school athlete and you were training for a sport, like this would speak to you. You would probably click on that if you saw it shared. Or if you're Canon and you're saying, hey, fall's almost over, get your camera that you spent hundreds of dollars on, get it out, start using it, maybe come and buy another one. Or if you're Purina, their messaging right now is that humans and pets are better together. So here's 11 reasons why cats are actually the perfect companion. So it shows like all these fun little images of people and cats and playing together. Or if you're IKEA, and instead of them saying, come in and buy some stuff, it's cheap and you got to put it together and it's actually awful. Here's some fun uses of our product, and here are cool ways that you can liven up your dorm room. If you're a college student, this is going to speak directly to you. Or if you're a person who's in the middle of decorating your apartment, like this is going to speak to you, and you'll probably click into it and share it. And what we find with this type of content is it actually works because you're speaking to people in a two-way road instead of just like shouting stuff at them. So I'll show you a case study that proves this. So this is a case study we did for Taco Bell. So Taco Bell said, hey, we're launching these new loaded grillers. Their whole creative behind it was not sharing. So it's the opposite of social. So it's saying like, you don't want to share your loaded grillers with other people. So we built this whole content series around not sharing. So 10 Foursquare check-ins that probably shouldn't be shared. So your local Scientology center, the Brazilian waxing station, or jail, like places where people would check in and post it on Facebook. And you're like, why would you do that? It tells their story in a really fun, creative way. It's an extension on their message. It's not just a Taco Bell ad. It's a piece of content that integrates their message. And what we find is people respond to it. So this is a look at the increase in purchase intent. So over here, 85% more people responded that they can't wait to try the loaded grillers from Taco Bell. But the really interesting so these are people that were not exposed, people that were exposed to the content. The interesting thing is here, when people respond to it or exposed to it via social, so they saw it shared, the lift goes up 467%. So what that means is like, if you saw your friend share it, you trust it a lot more, as opposed to it coming directly from Taco Bell. If your friend posted it, I keep doing that. If your friend posted it, you're a little bit warmer to that content, and you're gonna believe the message a little bit more because it came from your friend as opposed to this big scary corporation. Does that make sense? Cool. That's it.